All right, Eric Arnold here in the Politics Barn, wee hours of Saturday, 26th of August. Well, what's on tap for this episode? Well, we're going to try to cover why this lawfare that's being waged against Donald Trump is so dangerous. We're going to try to cover as much as we can in 30 minutes. I don't think there's any way in the world we're going to get through it all, so it's probably going to be kind of a two-part discussion here. But let's get going, do our best. Now, before we get into the some of these dangerous lawfare scenarios, and let me say at the top, we're going to discuss things that are illegal. We're going to discuss violence. We're all big boys here, big boys and girls. We do not condone any of that here in the Politics Barn. For one thing, that's exactly what the government wants us to do. We're playing right into their hands with illegal activities and violence. That's exactly what they want, as for nothing else, an excuse to take our rights from us. So it's all bad if you resort to violence, and we do not condone that here in the Politics Barn. So, but, again, why is the actions that are going forth in this country being waged by the Democrats? Why is it dangerous? You hear these politicians talk about it, but they never really tell you. They always just kind of stop short. Well, I'm going to actually talk about it. We're actually going to go there. Oh, well, people are angry, and I'm worried. I'm really worried. There might be a civil war. Well, how would that manifest itself? How would that go down? What would happen? We're going to try to get into some of that. John Kasich brought it up. Sarah Palin brought it up here in the last 48 hours. So let's talk about it like adults. While we still can, let's exercise our freedom of speech with the caveat that we're not going to engage in any of this, at least the people on this channel, because we know that it's unethical, illegal, immoral, will get us arrested, will send us to hell, any number of those things. So, I've been thinking about this Georgia case, because that seems to be the one that's going first. That one's going to be tried ahead of the others, if for no other reason. It seems because of a weird statutory thing where a defendant can demand a speedy trial there, and one of the defendants has demanded a speedy trial. I think that's going to be a shit show for the Democrats. These trials are basically being tried in the court of public opinion. Now, for Donald Trump himself, of course, there's, 10 or 11 Democrats sitting on a jury of 12 people that are trying to put him in jail, and very likely one of those kangaroo courts will put him in jail. So it's a real world thing for him. But as far as the rest of us trying to determine who our next leader is going to be, it's the court of, we're the jury, out here, trying to determine, is this fair? Is Donald Trump really a monster, or is he being railroaded? I think that the Democrats have a problem with this Georgia trial, in that I think there's a good chance that it's going to go not the way they think it's going to go. I mean, the whole thing is almost just a joke. It's like you're going to try 18, 19 people at the same time, like a freaky Nuremberg type trial, like a war crime, or a Soviet show trial. You people are nuts. That's such a joke. It's going to be a joke on the face of it. Just when anybody looks at this, and I guess the Democrats are going to try to televise this because they think that's going to advantage them. I don't think it will. I think it'll backfire on them. anybody that tunes in on this is gonna, after like an hour watching it, go, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous that this is going on. You're gonna have probably 50 people representing the defense. Each one of these accused is gonna have multiple lawyers representing them. You're not gonna just have one guy representing all 18, 19 people. They're all gonna have their individual attorneys, and they're all gonna wanna talk. So you could have, this thing could drag on for months probably. And I don't know that that's a bad thing for Trump. You know, the longer that thing drags on, just the more ridiculous it's gonna look. He's guilty of what? Questioning the integrity of the election in Georgia, or more specifically Fulton County. You know, a lot of things are gonna then be brought up in evidence that most normal people, and when I say a normal person, I'm thinking of someone like my mother, someone that doesn't watch the news, someone like Jerry. Jerry is a Republican who voted for Biden, who admittedly does not watch the news, and when he does, often it's CNN. So Jerry is frankly not very well educated, which is why he voted for Biden. So some of this stuff is going to be put before these people for the first time, and they're going to be saying, I don't understand why they sent all those poll watchers home and said they were done counting, and then they kept counting. I don't get that. Why did they say there was a water leak when there was no water leak? Why did they run multiple batches of paper through those machines at the multiple times? I explained, which is right there on video. It's like, why did that happen? So they're going to have to, the prosecutors are going to have to answer some of those questions, or the officials that were in charge of that sort of thing are going to be brought up as witnesses, and they're going to have to answer some of that. Now, a lot of this trial is going to be controlled by the judge. You know, who is the judge? If you have even just a moderately Democrat judge, Trump should be in okay shape, because I think a lot of things about this trial, even just, like I said, just a run-of-the-mill Democrat judge would sit there and go, I'm uncomfortable with all of this, and I'm not just gonna let this DA prosecutor have her way and railroad these guys. A lot of these people sitting there in the dock are lawyers. Lawyers, for the most part, are Democrats. I wouldn't be surprised if some of those people that have been indicted are Democrats. You know, just based on the law of averages, probably some of them are. You know, that their only crime is that they gave legal advice to Donald Trump. That is throwing the entire American jurisprudence system on its head. You know, talk about dangerous. If all of a sudden now, representing a potential guilty client is grounds for a crime, well, you've just thrown our entire legal system out the window. How in the hell is anyone ever going to get a fair trial after that? Knowing that, well, any kind of I guess, political crime, if I represent the bad guy, yeah, I could end up in jail too. So the bad guy, you know, whoever's the dissenter, the guy out of power, he'll never get a fair trial. He won't even get representation. It'll all just be a show trial. It's like we're describing things that we all should have learned in school, and are describing things that we all commonly know as a totalitarian state. You know, we used to laugh about these things when we were in school. East Germany, the Soviet Union, China. It's like, wow, what a great thing that we don't live there. Well, now here we are, and we're turning our beautiful country into those places. Unbelievable. But, so I think the judge is probably going to be, You know, I don't think I'm hoping it's not going to be a show trial, that the judge is actually going to be fair. You know, I could see in the Washington case in D.C., I know I'm reasonably convinced that that's going to be a show trial, just based on the comments the judge has already made. She's already impeached herself as partial. She's a partisan. She's not impartial. She hates Trump. She's made that pretty clear. So that's going to be a show trial. But the one that's going to probably go first is this Georgia case. And like I said, I think Trump is going to come out of that looking pretty good, which may influence the other cases. In other words, this is being tried in the court of public opinion. I think Trump's going to win the Georgia case in the court of public opinion. Whether he wins it amongst the 12 jurors, you never know. I mean, they could be 12 hardcore Democrats. And like I said, a Democrat on that jury is not going to review that evidence. They are simply going to vote guilty. They do not think, they do not reason. They're simply going to do what they're told by their masters, and that is to vote him guilty. They might as well just mail in their guilty vote now and save us all the trouble. It just depends on how many non-hardcore Democrats are on the jury, whether there's any chance to hang the jury. I don't think there's any chance in the world he's going to be acquitted, just because these hardcore Democrats will never vote to acquit him. They don't think. They're not going to think. They're incapable of thinking. So we'll see. You know, like I said, winning in the court of public opinion could be very valuable when it comes to these other cases, such as the one in Washington. I think that's the most dangerous one for Trump, just because D.C. is a 90% Democrat. Every juror in that jury box is going to be a Democrat. The judge is a hardcore Marxist Democrat. He's not going to get a fair shake in that trial. He is going to probably just be convicted no matter what the evidence is. But he still might win in the court of public opinion. That's important. So, what may happen here in some of these scenarios where Trump is being tried and what have you? Now, we're going to assume he's going to jail. If he doesn't go to jail, if somehow he beats all these cases, I think there's a decent chance he wins the election. You know, if he wins the election, well, then will there be a civil war? No, there won't. Actually, things are going to be pretty damn good. They'll probably just be like they were in 2017, 2018, and 2019. Price of everything's going to come down. We're going to get out of this idiotic war over in the Ukraine. We'll get somewhat of control over our borders again. Things for you and me are probably going to get pretty good for a while, at least, as long as Trump's in office. So I'm not worried about that scenario at all. I'm kind of hoping that happens. I don't know it is going to happen. Like I said, I think the most likely scenario he is going to get convicted. I am looking at my timer here. Oh, Lord. I can't say anything in less than like 20 minutes. But all right, so scenarios. We talked about the bitterness scenario. That's the most common, most likely thing to happen after they throw him in jail, which is basically nothing. You know, people on the right are going to be furious. We're going to be very bitter. We're not going to forget it. As Newt Gingrich said, that bitterness will last for a generation. You know, hatred, just pure hatred will go on. But, you know, we're not going to do anything. You know, we're not going to march on the Capitol again. We'll talk angry on the internet just like I am. But I'm not talking violence because I said at the top what we think of that. We'll talk angry, but nothing's going to happen. And that's the most likely scenario. Relationships will fray. Friendships will be broken. There'll be divorces. As far as that, some of that blowing back on the Democrats, I doubt they give a shit about any of that. I really don't think they give a damn about any of that. So, you know, that's your most likely scenario, and the Democrats are probably saying, well, that's the worst that's going to happen. Hell, let's put all the Republicans in jail. You know, Trump could still win. He still could win from jail. As I mentioned, that would be a rainbow and sunshine scenario there. Now, if he does win, what happens then? Well, again, the most likely scenario is he's going to do nothing, just like he did when he won in 2016. Oh yeah, there'll be some obvious things. He'll fire the FBI director. I mean, that's low-hanging fruit. There's a guy that should have been fired the first time around. I guess he did fire Comey. It took him too long to do it. But considering all the other people in his administration that should have richly been fired, Anthony Fauci, Deborah Birx, these type of people, and Trump just did nothing, I would expect he'd do very little. And I almost think that's the right thing to do, in that may go a ways to somewhat healing the country a little bit. Now, another thing he could do is, I called this the "say hello to my little friend." That's a line from Scarface, where Tony Montana, played by Al Pacino, he is Scarface. He is the bad guy, as he said a line earlier in the movie. So say goodnight to the bad guy. He's the bad guy. Well, he's going to war near the end of the movie. He's going to war, and he's breaking out his heavy machine gun, and he says, "Say hello to my little friend." And he starts shooting up the room. Yeah, sure, I suppose Trump could do that. Now, again, that's not violence, NSA, FBI, CIA. Talking metaphorically, Donald Trump's not going to shoot anyone with a machine gun. I do not condone anyone getting shot with a machine gun. So, but metaphorically, he could just fire. All right, we're cleaning house. Anyone in the government over, say, a GS-14, you're all fired. You're all fired. I'm moving the Capitol, the executive branch of the government of which I am the boss. We're moving that to Altoona, Pennsylvania. That's where we're all going to do business now. If you want to do any business with the executive branch, the offices are now in Altoona. Every office here in Washington is now closed. We're going to have the GSA sell it to the Democrats, sell it to the mayor, whatever. But we don't want it anymore. We're not here anymore. It doesn't matter. We're going to Altoona. That's one thing I've never understood, why all these drain the swamp people. It's like, why do you keep talking about drain the swamp, drain the swamp, drain the swamp? Why don't you just move? Move out of the swamp. Just move the government out of Washington. You're never going to drain that any more than Sam Kinnison's joke about the sand. It's like, what? This is sand, You know what's going to be 1,000 years from now? Sand! Move where the food is. So, but yeah, move out of the swamp. Move away from these scumbag Democrats. Move into a red jurisdiction, and let's see how they like it. But he can do things like that. Now, again, this is highly unlikely, just because I don't think Trump is anywhere near that creative or organized. Or does he have enough personnel that he can trust to pull anything like that off? If he fired 10,000 people, where's he going to find 10,000 replacements? He doesn't have a list that has 10,000 names on it. So I would expect him to do nothing, which would be just fine. We would all make out like bandits. It would be fantastic for all of us except the elites in this country. And I don't think any of them are watching this channel. So, now all the rest of these are all kind of scenarios where he's in jail and he loses the election. So let's run through them fast here because we're running out of time. He loses, he's in jail. You might see some Republicans try to play lawfare of their own in some red jurisdictions, where you might try to find a Democrat and just investigate him endlessly until you can find anything to charge him with. Anything, which is basically what the Democrats have done. It's the old Soviet quote from their secret police man. I believe his last name was Beria, a notorious hitman for Stalin. And he said, well, you show me the man and I'll show you the crime. In other words, I can find something on anybody, just give me enough time. And that's what the Democrats are doing to Trump. Well, two can play at that game. It's not a good game to play. It's not an ethical or righteous game to play. But what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So, yeah, you might see some of that. Now, in all these scenarios where Trump has lost, he's in jail, any action taken by the Republicans towards the Democrats, any kind of pushback, any kind of resistance will lead to loss of rights, free speech will be curtailed, audits will be conducted on Republicans, just run-of-the-mill Republicans like you and me. People will be put in jail for God knows what, thought crime, speaking at a rally, any kind of dissent at all, people will be jailed. This will happen. So any kind of resistance will meet with punishment from the Democrats, the administration, the government. This will happen. Any kind of resistance at all after the Democrats win in 24 will lead to punishment. So, just telling you how it is. That's not up for debate as far as I'm concerned. I've seen enough evidence of how these thugs operate. It's coming. It's already happening. You just look around. It's already happening. The Trumpers fight back. When I said GOP fights back, I'm talking about, your basic lawfare, where they just try to put some Democrats in jail in some red jurisdictions. The Trumpers fighting back, we're talking more violence. Where rallies getting out of hand, perhaps some Democrat officials get targeted for violence, whatever scale you can think of. It could be all the way up or down the scale. Now again, we don't condone any of this, but we're just talking realistically here about what could happen. Now the Democrats are rubbing their hands with glee over this type of thing because this is their wet dream. They're jerking themselves off at night thinking about this. It's like, yeah, we'll get these Trumpers all worked up and they'll come there with their little pitchforks. What happened to my little pitchfork? Here it is. Here's my little pitchfork. And we're going to come with our little pitchforks, and they're going to be there with their body armor and helicopters and giant tanks. And, it'll be like Custer, the little bighorn. We're going to get massacred. We're all going to be thrown in jail till we die. All our rights are going to be stripped then. It'll give them an excuse to basically institute martial law. Right now, in the lockdowns, there was already a soft type of martial law, and nobody pushed back. It was all just kind of like, yeah, okay, I guess we just have to take it. They can institute martial law, and not a person's going to say a goddamn thing. That's the most likely scenario, and they know it. So, if violence breaks out like that, yeah, oh yeah. If you've ever had a Trump flag on your truck, if you've ever had a Trump sign in your yard, look out. If you've ever said on the internet, Trump ain't so bad, which I just said, well, we're all probably going to go into the same jail cell. Maybe we'll get lucky and have the cell next to Donald Trump. Then we can sit there and talk about, well, I don't know, golf maybe, the Ryder Cup. But that's going to happen if there's violence. Now, some more creative stuff. What if these Trumpers are more organized than I think they are? What if they try to break Donald Trump out of jail? What if they just say, this is not happening here in America. We are not putting up with this. We're going to go get him out. That might happen. There could be a riot or a raid on the jail, and depending on how well it's planned, it may actually succeed. Think of all the people out there that voted for Donald Trump And if you can find enough of them to carry a gun and organize them, oh yeah, you could definitely organize a raid that would succeed. I know Joe Biden thinks that's impossible, but he thinks that the gun is, the handgun is totally useless, basically, period. You got your gun, I got my F-15, ha ha ha. Yeah, well, I mean, ask the Afghanis about that. They overthrew the F-15s with, their little AK-47s and whatnot. So the idea that just an armed populace can never overthrow a government is just patent nonsense. History teaches us that. So that could definitely happen. Again, you'll have your martial law, your widespread arrests. This is all, almost certain to happen if there's something like that happens. What if Trump says no? What if Trump says, I'm not going to jail? Let's say in the D.C. case, it's coming down to the end. He can see the writing on the wall. They dismiss for the day, and Trump just says, okay. And he gets in his helicopter with his, heavy security force and just flies away. Flies to Oklahoma, let's just say. I picked that out of the air just because it's a red state. And says, I don't think I'm going to let you arrest me today, Marshal Biden. And just says, and you can come and get me. But everyone else out there that wants to jump on the bandwagon, pick up a gun, and the Civil War starts now. Well, that would call the question, wouldn't it? Donald Trump just called the question. So, then we'd all be put to the test as far as thinking, I don't know. I mean, is this it then? I mean, are we done now? We're done talking? We're going to line up with Biden or Trump? And if I line up with Biden, I mean, what do I get there? All they're going to do is shoot me once, they're done catching Donald Trump, because I once said vote for Donald Trump. So should I throw in with Trump? But that is kind of treason what he's doing. So what do I do? What do I do? You're going to have real upset if something like that happens. There will be violence. That's almost guaranteed. There will be shooting and violence and people killed and businesses destroyed, marriages wrecked. You're going to get a real civil war. I don't know this is a likely scenario just because I think Donald Trump views himself as a tough guy and would rather sit in jail as a martyr rather than flee and lead an actual armed insurrection. I don't think he's that organized, frankly. I mean, he would have to have organized a private army to even begin to wage this kind of action. I don't think he'd be able to do that, basically, without the government stepping in and declaring martial law before he's able to execute the scenario. In other words, the government would have wind. This is in the breeze long before it was executed. They just arrest him. And all the rest of us, they'll just arrest us all, throw a huge blanket over us. Like, wait a minute, I didn't do anything. I'm not part of the Trump army. Well, you talked about this scenario. I said it was illegal and I didn't say we should do it. Well, you just brought it up. And even Trump would have never thought of it if you hadn't even mentioned it. It's like, well, that's called freedom of speech. But, again, that's what's at risk here. That's why this is so dangerous. This criminalization of dissent is a totalitarian thing. Freedom of speech is what the government, this country, the United States of America, was founded on. When you talk about the freedom to speak, you're thinking more than just that. It's the freedom to think. I think, therefore I speak. I have to think before I can speak. Otherwise, I just go, if you tell, I cannot no longer say anything. If I can no longer enunciate what I'm thinking, I basically have lost the right to think. And that's what a totalitarian government wants. They want you to be no longer allowed to think. 1984. I've often thought that we should have a book study on 1984, the literary work by George Orwell from 1948, because so many of you people have not read it. It's a seminal work about totalitarianism. It's one of the touchstone works of literature that should be mandated reading in every school in the country, and it's not. So I think at some point we should get into that. But at any rate, this would be a civil war scenario where Donald Trump would be out there just thumbing his nose at the lawful government saying, hey, come get me. And I've got my people behind me and they're going to fight for me too. And it would be a question of which side are you on? And I don't know which side I'd be on, honestly. I probably would fall in with Biden just because I'm not ready to join an insurrection led by Donald Trump. But it could happen, for God's sake. And then the last scenario, and I think we get enough time to quick get to this one. No, we don't. We're going to cut it off there. We can talk about the other scenario later. And it is probably the most likely scenario that, I'll just touch on it real quick here, that anger, that bitterness that I talked about, that may manifest itself down the road. We may get a real strongman dictator, and he may be able to actually gain power. Because once you knock out the foundations of a democracy that have kept this country strong for over 200 years, the criminalization of dissent, the refusal to acknowledge the rights of a minority, two of the key foundations that this country was built on, then you can get anything. You could get a dictator. Absolutely, you could get a dictator. It could happen here. Well, Biden's a dictator. Yeah, okay. Well, there could be another dictator, and he may make Biden look like, Santa Claus. And because of the conditions that have been created by the Democrats, people may be saying, I'm tired of being kicked around. I'm tired of being a second-class citizen and being arrested at any point in time just because I said I don't think Joe Biden's such a great president. People might get pissed off, and then they may go to that authoritarian, hardcore tyrant. Basically, Donald Trump, as the Democrats think he is. Donald Trump is in no way, shape, or form any kind of dictator. And to say so is just a flat outright lie. A disgusting lie. But that's what the Democrats have been running around saying for the last 7 years, and it's been a lie. It's always been a lie. Well, maybe you'll get a real dictator. And that's scary for everybody, I would think. So let's talk about that more later. We'll cut off the episode here. Again, we do not condone any kind of illegal activity or violence. That's what the Democrats are begging us to do. That's their wet dream. We can't do it. I'm just talking about scenarios that can happen. That can happen because the Democrats have declared war on us. It has happened. This lawfare is just another way of saying warfare. It's political violence. They have declared war on us. And this is why it's so dangerous that they have done that. They think this is all fun and games. They're just playing hardball politics. They've declared war, and they do not understand, well, the voters, the Democrat voters, do not understand the ramifications of what their leaders have done. That's what we're trying to get across to all you people. We'll talk again. I'm Eric Arnold. I believe in free speech.